Hello, everyone. I'm Sean.
This is Hoon.
And we are the Courageour Frights back once again for another movie review.
Yes.
So, as you can see, this time we're reviewing MaXXXine.
MaXXXine.
So, this is the latest A24 film from director Ty West.
All that elevated horror just coming into our eyes.
Elevated horror.
Yes.
Elevator horror.
We were in the theater with two old people. They were there for the.
Yes.
They were there for the elevated horror.
They were there for the elevated horror. The one guy left.
Yeah, he left.
An hour in to go to the bathroom for 45 minutes.
He used
and
the
then came
bathroom
back.
and just never came back.
Yeah, he eventually came back. And then he left again 5 minutes later.
Yes.
So this is the third of the trilogy, starting with X, and then Pearl, and then MaXXXine, all starring Mia Goth.
Yes.
Who's a bit of a legend in the horror community these days. So
Yeah, she's Pearl and MaXXXine. She does it pretty good in this one too. So she does a really decent job as actress in all these movies, actually.
yeah, she's a really good actor in these movies. Had some bit of legal trouble in this most recent one,
Yeah,
but
especially this one.
apparently, allegedly injured one of her coworkers.
Yeah, it was what was it? Dead Puritan. Or whatever. That's what it was. I think that's what, or dead whatever. It was like.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, but
Yeah.
who knows if that's true or not.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, these films are really well done. The first film, X, we just recently watched all three of these. X is basically a 1970s grindhouse slasher.
Yeah. It's like it follows like a porn studio. It's like not really just porn director, and like they're just filming a porno there.
Yeah, filming a porno in like some guy's house in Texas.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the people that own the house are like murderers or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Which they make fun of in here, actually. I don't know if it was an intentional jab at X, but there is a headline in here that says like the Texas Porn Star Massacre or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one's strongly influenced by Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, very strongly.
Pearl is a bit of an enigma because it's a prequel and it's set in like 1918.
Yeah, because Pearl is it's set in the main character is Pearl, who's who's like the killer, like the grandmother, like it's like the old lady.
The old lady from the first one. Yeah,
And X.
also played by Mia Goth.
Yeah,
and that one is really well done.
Yeah, that one's really good.
They're all good, but Pearl for me and you also, I think, is our favorite of the three.
Because the acting's really good. There's like a scene where she's just kind of zoning out, talking about like her life.
Oh
and,
yeah.
And just like her life and how she's like how she kind of doesn't feel the same way as a bunch of other people around her, and how her life is like all screwed up.
Yeah, it's just this long monologue.
It's really probably like 10 minutes. It's a long one, but it's really good.
Yeah, her acting is excellent. And then here, this I personally might put this at the bottom of the three.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But not by a long shot. Like it's not drastically worse than the other two.
Yeah.
The other two are really, really good too. So this being lower than those isn't necessarily a knock against the film.
Because this is a direct continuation off of
X.
Like literally a direct continuation. Probably like how many years passed between the two movies?
Like 7.
Yeah, it's like a little bit passed between the two movies.
Yeah, so that one was in the 70s. This is the 1980s.
Yeah, 86, I believe.
85, 86, something like that. There's these movies all are like period pieces.
Yeah.
In a way, so
because X had like I said, it's like the 70s grindhouse, but also the 70s porno.
Yeah.
It has like the same type of filmography to it. At least
these movies all kind of connect the two. Because like this movie too, the imagery is obvious.
Yeah, very 80s.
Where you have people going around with signs saying horror is porn and like horror is not art and like all that kind of crap. So there's a statement to be made there. It's coming out of the 1980s, and whereas many of us view the 1980s as like a golden age of horror, because there's so many horror movies that came out of the 80s. The truth of the matter is that people living at the time in the 80s, there was a lot of backlash to all these films.
Yeah.
There was, the concept of satanic panic, where everybody thought these things were like drawing people towards the devil worship and all this kind of crap.
Yeah.
There's people that equated porn with horror or or porn was Satanism or whatever. Like, this type of view at that time was very prevalent. You had in the UK my favorite phrase, the video nasty, which they reference in this movie. I think that's the first time I've ever heard the words video nasty in a movie, where the UK just outright banned like tons of movies. Whereas in the US we would get them maybe slightly edited or something. Many countries just wouldn't show them at all.
They're talking about how it corrupts people.
yeah, and that was a common thing. And in the 1990s, it continued with video games.
That's actually like a theme in these movies, is corruption. Corruption, I guess you can say, is a theme.
Yeah. So there's the two dichotomies here, because you have that where it's like horror and porn. Like, she starts out as a porn star, now she's trying to make her transition to Hollywood, and her way in is horror. Yeah. Which is a gateway for a lot of actors. Yeah. And it addresses that issue there. There's kind of, it's even funny in here where they talk about how she's like excited because she got a horror movie or something. And her one friend is like, oh, she's like, well, you're not going to get anywhere doing horror movies. And then ironically, they have Kevin Bacon in this movie. As one of the leads, and who, of course, Kevin Bacon became like an A-list star. But he started in films like Friday the 13th. So, like, a lot of people were in horror. Yeah. Johnny Depp was in Nightmare on Elm Street. And, like, all these different... Jamie Lee Curtis was in Halloween. Like, all of these people that end up becoming big-name stars did start in horror. But this kind of addresses that in a film. So, it was pretty cool. Yeah. It's set around the time of the Night Stalker murders that happened in like 1985. That was a real thing that happened at the time. But this movie, the killer in this is more inspired by that.
Yeah, because I think it's going on at the same time. So the FBI or whoever, like the LAPD is trying to like investigate all this. Is like, this must be a copycat type of thing. Yeah, it's like trying to imitate the Night Stalker murders, which I think, well, Night Stalker, I guess we're looking about a little bit about. I guess it was about Satanism. That had actually something about Satanism too, which
there was supposedly a satanic angle to it. Yeah. But yeah, that's a real thing. So it ties in real sentiment from the era, the protesters, all that kind of crap. Like some movies outright banned during that period, or like quickly banned, because like Silent Night, Deadly Night, the one about the killer Santa Claus. Naughty. That movie got like pulled out of theaters like shortly after it was released, because parents complaining about like evil Santa Claus scaring their kids or whatever.
I think that happened quite a bit that time period.
Yeah, so even though we consider the 80s today, a lot of horror fans really love the 80s, myself included. That's my favorite decade for horror films. They did have to deal with this like backlash from like the ultra conservative community. Yeah. Which I thought was interesting, because the current times we live in now, it's starting to swing back that direction again. So, like, that'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years. I'm sure we're going to have to deal with this again pretty soon. Yeah. So it's probably becoming very relevant again. But yeah, like I said, the acting is phenomenal in these movies. Yeah. It's dealing with real world issues from then and probably today. Yeah. Like I said, it's not quite as good overall, but it is going more into... I think another problem this film has maybe is because it's going into such more familiar territory. Yeah. Because the 1980s has been done to death in movies lately. Yeah. But they do address that too, because they're talking about their movie, The Puritan 2 or whatever that they're supposed to be making, is set in the 1950s. Which we recently watched Night of the Creeps, a movie from the 80s that had a 1950s prologue. Yeah. Many movies from the 1980s were remakes of films from the 1950s. So just like we're obsessed with the 1980s now, people in the 1980s were obsessed with the 1950s. Everybody's always going back. But this does do it really well. It fits. It feels like the 1980s. It's doing that like the cities have that dirty, grungy look.
Yeah. It definitely had a... I don't know. I think they might have been using like a filter or something, but it does have like a 1980s film filter or something, because it has like that weird I don't know, static.
Yeah, all these films have done that a bit.
Yeah, because in Pearl, it's more like Wizard of Oz type of.
Yeah, Pearl. That's the one thing Pearl didn't quite capture, because I don't see how you would capture it. But it's supposed to be set in 1918, but it's mostly nostalgic for like 1930s films or something.
It uses Technicolor.
Yeah.
Which is like, it makes things very like saturated color-wise, contrasty and saturated, which it does that a lot in that movie.
Right. And then this X has a bit of a 70s feel
that
to
70s grindhouse, like I said, porno look, because it has like that weird, like when it showed the porn scenes.
Yeah,
they're very like they look like those old style pornos.
Yeah. This has a lot less of that, but that's it makes sense with the story, because she's moving out of that and moving into normal films.
In normal films, which you have the 1980s, which even had like scenes of like a gunfight.
Yeah,
that looked like a 1980s gunfight.
Yeah,
like something you would see in like an action movie back in the 80s.
Yeah, this was a lot of different. And this is my one problem. One of my problems with this movie is that, like I said when we came out of the theater, it didn't seem as focused as the other two. Like it's trying to cover everything.
Because I think they were trying to like do two different things at once, maybe.
Well, it's also the fact that it's set in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it's trying to cover all this different ground.
Yeah, the only one of the bad things that happened in this movie too is kind of if you were paying attention to the movie, the first thing I thought of like halfway through is like the killer.
Oh yeah,
I like guessed who the killer was like right away.
It's fairly obvious.
Okay, it's probably this.
Yeah, I don't know if this movie is even trying to be a mystery.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if it was actually trying to or not.
Although, if it's a 1980s slasher film, a lot of them are fairly predictable.
Yeah.
So, because I've been watching a lot of 80s slasher films recently, and a lot of them, the killer is like, oh yeah,
maybe that might be why.
I saw that like the second scene. But this feels a lot like, it feels more like a giallo, like the Italian version, more than like a straight up slasher. There isn't all that much killing in this.
No, there's not that much in here.
Like, it's not... the killer... Well, the killer literally looks like somebody from a giallo film anyway, because it's just a guy in a black trench coat with all like black gloves, the black gloves and the black... like, all that stuff. Like, that looks like something from, like, an Italian slasher movie from, like, the 70s or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, if people aren't familiar with what a giallo is, that's basically it. It's pretty much an Italian...
It's a slasher type
It's like a slasher... It's an elevated slasher from Italy. Because they're sort of like slashers, but they weren't quite as schlocky. Yeah. Like, they tended to have more of a... more dramatic elements to it, and...
It's more stylized.
Very stylized, and more of, like, a whodunit mystery type thing. So, this has elements of that. But it has elements of many different types of things. And that's its strength and its detriment at the same time. Like, it's got pros and cons coming out of that.
I know the one thing, it does fit pretty well with the themes of throughout every one of these movies.
Yeah.
Like, I probably won't go through what the themes are, because they would be spoilers.
Yeah, this is an actual
movie.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go into too many spoilers here.
But there are certain themes that if you've watched all three of them at the same time, like we did, you'll pick up on a lot of the themes of what's going on in the movie.
Right. Like the general
what they're going for.
The general idea for X and MaXXXine is you just have a very determined person.
Yeah.
Who's trying to make it big, be a big star.
Yeah.
And she's like willing to do almost anything to get there.
That's also in Pearl. It does the same thing.
Yeah, Pearl. Yeah, that's true.
But it kind of does. Yeah. It kind of goes in a different direction. But
right. Yeah, that goes in a completely different direction, actually.
Yeah.
Where in this one's more in the direction of like the final girl type.
Yeah, the final girl type.
Which is a follow-up to X. If you've seen X, this is basically X again.
Which I think is like if they were to make... Because the way this ends, it's almost like it's like the end of the series or whatever. Which this is actually supposed to be the end of the series, because they were only supposed to make a trilogy.
Yeah.
But if they were to make another one, they'd probably have to go a sequel to Pearl.
That's what I would think. Ty West, I think, did say that he had ideas for more after this. He initially envisioned this as a trilogy. But Pearl's not really part of the same story.
No.
Like, it's a different thing. So, and Pearl ends in 1918. Yeah. The character is still around in 1978 or 1970, whenever the heck the next one is. So it's like 60-some years later. So, It's like you have 6 decades to work with in between.
Pretty much.
Presumably, she was killing people all that time.
Yeah,
so.
It's definitely, like, if you watch that movie, it's pretty, that one's probably the most horror out of all these, I imagine, I would say.
Yeah.
Because of the way the subject matter is, but it definitely could mean that there's probably been a lot of killings throughout that time period, which...
Right.
Being on a farm
X
in Texas,
implies it strongly.
Yeah.
There's just some random guy, like, in the basement that they just killed recently that wasn't even part of their crew, I don't think.
Yeah, it was just like a random guy, because you see his, like, vehicle on the lake.
Yeah.
They call them Bohemians, which are, like...
that one, the Howards says they're Bohemians.
Yeah, which they'd imply that, like, there's someone... I guess in the movie, the Bohemian... I don't know if this actually is the actual term or
That's
whatever.
a phrase, yeah.
It's where they can just kind of do whatever they want, basically.
Yeah.
It'd be, like, kind of like promiscuous or whatever.
Yeah, like free spirit people that can just do whatever, yeah. But that's kind of been implied that's been ongoing. It's sort of like Texas Chainsaw or whatever, where it's just this household that has been murdering people for decades.
Yeah, and just being Texas, probably Texas being a big state it is, it's probably, especially there in that time, I'm sure there's been a lot of murders.
Well, it's like, it's too big to investigate everything. Like,
if you're doing it in the middle of the woods somewhere.
Plus, you got people just keep themselves or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
And being like a porn directors and stuff, I'm sure they probably a little bit more sleazy anyways. So.
Yeah, they're not exactly too picky where they film their movies.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's basically it. It's kind of, I guess this is sort of our mini review of all the films in the trilogy. But I would say Pearl's the best.
Yeah, I would say Pearl's definitely the best.
X and then MaXXXine.
Yeah.
But this new one is pretty good. It's not that far removed from X.
Yeah.
So I would say if you liked X, you probably would also like MaXXXine. So I would say if any of those, you saw the other 2 films and you liked what you saw, I would recommend checking this one out too.
I guess the only other thing is they did say, there was an article I read.
Yeah.
They said this is kind of like the first modern day slasher movie. I'm talking about modern, like 2000s, whatever year. Is that a true statement? I don't even know.
We just had a slasher like a month ago.
Which one was that one?
The one with the guy in the woods or whatever that's just walking around from like a POV camera angle thing.
I'm talking about maybe like a slasher in terms of like an actual franchise.
No, a franchise.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because was there any other slasher movies out there that's like a
that turned into a franchise?
Yeah, it turned into a franchise.
Yeah.
I don't really know if this... I wouldn't even say...
Also, you gotta wonder if this is even really truly a slasher.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's... I don't know about that statement.
Yeah,
I'd have to think about it. Well...
There's a lot of movies...
I mean, are they talking about, like super famous films or just in general? Because in general...
I think it's super famous.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, Poland had a slasher franchise like 2 years ago.
I think this
Netflix.
would be like mainstream famous.
Yeah,
like almost like I'm assuming they meant maybe like Friday the 13th type of thing.
Yeah, something that's new.
Yeah, new.
Because if you're going with of all time, I mean, we just had a Halloween trilogy
this would be like
a couple years ago. So
modern,
like new,
like
new.
Postmodern. I guess we consider postmodern.
Whatever. Yeah, like present. Maybe.
Yeah, present.
I guess you could consider this that.
Because
but it's a lot of caveats to get to that, though.
And like I said, this has a slasher in it, but it's not like focused on the slasher. So
no, almost all the kills are off screen.
Yeah, so it's like
there's only one kill in the movie that's like focused.
Yeah,
like a slasher would be.
Yeah, that is true. Everyone else is like
I don't know if this even is a slasher, really. If you really think about it.
Like, the subject matter, it has a slasher, but...
yeah. But like I said, it almost falls more into the Giallo category than a true slasher. So, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a true statement.
Yeah. But... So tell us in the comments below if you agree.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Do you believe that this trilogy is the first...
like, modern
slasher franchise, I guess? Or if you...
like a Friday the 13th or a whatever
Halloween or something like that. Not counting those movies.
Yeah, because those are based off of existing franchise.
Right. And I guess not counting movies that aren't super famous, I guess, because there's been a few.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's our views on MaXXXine. So I would say if you like the last two movies, check it out. If you didn't like those movies, don't check it out.
Yeah, don't check it out.
Because it's more of the same. So if you like the video, give us that thumbs up. If you don't like the video, don't.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought of the movie down below in the comments, and consider subscribing for more like this in the future, and you too can feel the strong welling within. See ya.